We have our concept map template with all of the cool parts. So let's start. The last unit you just did was intro to functions. So you just did that, and now that is going to help us learn about linear functions. So that's our next unit, or our current unit. And the next one, we're going to put TBD. That will be announced later about what comes after this. Okay, so the idea is we have what is called linear functions. I know, surprising. So with linear functions, we're going to look at first the parts. Next, we're going to look at finding equations. And lastly, we're going to look at relationships. Not all of them, but some. Okay? So with our linear functions unit, we have three big ideas. In our parts, we're going to have something called slope. The color is very important. We're going to have something called slope. And we're also going to have intercepts. And we're going to have variables. Specific variables. Okay, so the slope is what we're going to call M always. And we want to know types of slope, but also I'm going to put this down here and save room. How to find it. I suppose we'll also have to know what it is. But so we have types. We have 4 types. We have positive, negative, 0, and what's called undefined. Look at that more later. And how we find it, you're never going to guess it. Slope formula. Again, you're going to learn all about this. Now our intercept is what we call B, and that is specifically going to be y-intercept. Or specifically where it crosses the y-axis, which is the axis that goes up and down. Hopefully you're writing as small as I am. And our variables, we have 2. We have independent. And I'm running out of room here, so I'm going to do that line. And we have dependent. Dependent. And you have seen that in science, actually. So, once we figure out all of this complicated stuff, we're going to find equations. I'm going to draw these long lines 2 ways. One way is using slope and 1 point oh, actually, sorry, the independent, oh yeah, and 2 points. And really quickly, I didn't do it, I'm just going to put up here the parts make the equation y equals mx plus b. So we have our m, we have our b, and our independent variable be our x, and our dependent is y. So you're going to learn about each of the 4 parts, and they're all going to make this equation, and then we're going to find that using slope at 1 point or 2 points. And lastly, we have relationship. We have 2 types we're going to look at. Parallel lines and perpendicular lines. And most of you know this, but I'll just do it really quick. Parallel, never touch. Perpendicular touch, but more specifically, they form a 90-degree angle. So there is your map of each section. It will make more sense as you go. Now, central questions, we're going to look at 3 big questions that you can think about throughout the unit. 1, where do we see slopes or lines outside of math work? So does this exist in our non-math world? And if it does, where? I want to know how are parallel lines and perpendicular lines similar or different? Okay. And lastly, what are the ways to find the equation of a line? You know the information necessary here, but I want to know how do we use that information. Now let's look at vocab. There's a lot of vocab. Well, yes and no. First we have the words linear and functions. Those are important. Then we have slope, intercept, variable is important, independent, dependent, what else do we have? We have parallel, perpendicular. So maybe not that much. And what is the point of all this? Well, we know that equations can represent real-life situations, but now I want to take that one step further and represent equations graphically, and backwards represent graphs with equations. If I give you a graph representing data, depending on the graph, you might be able to find an equation from it and then describe the situation that's happening in the graph. So there we have each part. It's a lot of boxes, but if you wrote it neatly, you're okay. Less than 10 minutes, you're welcome.